pushed it, and I don't know what's happening right now.
He pushed it good. Pushed it real good. Joey says, "Hey."
Hi.
Hi, Joey.
How are you?
Hey, Joey. He also did one of those little wave emojis.
What?
He said, "Hey," and he did the little wave, like the wave.
Let me see.
It's like a hand, and it has little motion things on the side, like he's waving. So
vibrating.
that's possible. Yeah, that's what that means.
Yeah.
Joey said hi.
Jazz hands. Hey.
Joey, hello. I'm glad you're joining us. Welcome, actually, anybody who's watching this on YouTube. Thanks for hanging out with the recording for this week's SiftPop. We're going to have a good time, and we are glad you're here. Now is the time if you want to talk to us in the live chat to say hey, ask questions, all that kind of fun stuff. We're just now, I have the up in front of me, and you're just now doing your jazz hands. That was fabulous. I was not watching you when you did that the first time. That was absolutely wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
That needs to happen so much more than never happening before. Yes, exactly. All right, now it's a little bit creepy.
Yeah.
All right, so
Something.
Can you unmute Andrew's mic and mine for that matter?
all right. Wait, you guys want to be on the podcast?
I mean,
That's so weird.
technically, I'm just sitting here watching the UFC fight.
That's so weird that you guys would want your voices heard on the
I'm
podcast.
having trouble hearing Andrew.
Wait, didn't I do the whole?
Well, it's recording.
Yeah, it records.
It records.
Divorced of like the actual send.
Yes. So, like, because it's a direct in through USB, it's actually has nothing to do with.
Technology's loco, man.
It is.
It's so wild.
It's a little
and
weird.
radical.
That was technically my job to make sure that I could hear you. So I'll take the brunt for that one.
Derek says, I love that the first thing I heard coming in was Aaron's Salt and Pepper impersonation. Perfection.
But you're real good.
Jay Bourgeois says, hey, guys.
Hello.
Hey. We're going to get started here soon. We've got several people watching already, and we're very thankful for you hanging out with
Someone
us.
needs to clip that out, by the way.
A little,
The two
a
of
little
you.
animated.
Should I add that to Gold McFlurry?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Gold
A
McFlurry.
little animated GIF of Andrew and I doing jazz
Oh
hands.
no, that's not
That
how
would
you
be-
say it, is it?
It is.
Oh man, we can't be friends
It's
anymore.
It's the important things. I will go to bat for GIF.
I mean, I love peanut butter. Don't get me
Here's
wrong.
do you know the reason I go to bat for GIF?
You better not say it's because that's what the guy who created it says.
Well, that's beside the point. That is why that's where I landed, but that's beside the point. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is it really doesn't matter. There is no right answer. There is no wrong answer. There is no right answer. And so I'm going to go with the one that makes logical sense to me, and then we'll let culture decide eventually
I mean,
where
it's
it lands.
just like if you hear somebody say tomato, you
Right.
know, potato, you know.
Sure, right.
Like, nobody says it like that.
Right, not anymore, but at one point people did. Like, there's a whole song about you say, tomato, I say tomato. That song could be now, you say GIF, I say GIF.
Yeah.
Let's call the whole thing off. And that's it's not important, right?
Yeah.
Like, your logic is just as flawed as mine, right? You probably think that because it says graphics that it has to be a hard G sound, right?
Yeah.
That's probably well, that's silly. There are many, many acronyms that don't use that. OSHA is one, for instance. The O in OSHA stands for occupational. It's not OSHA. It's OSHA.
It should be Asha. Then.
Words are words independent, right? Like scuba is an acronym, right? It's not scuba, even though the U is
Actually,
for underwater.
It should be scuba. This is the hill
gonna
we're
go
gonna
back
die
on.
on.
Yeah, he's going to die on this hill.
Yeah.
He's going to die on this hill. All right, anyways, what does matter, of course, is our opinions on movies, and so we'll get to those here quickly.
I mean, if you guys don't mind waiting, let's see. This fight has another 30 minutes.
We're not waiting for you to finish your UFC fight, Andrew.
Fine.
It's not happening. We're going to do a podcast.
You guys are so rude.
Seriously, we are. It's amazing how incredibly rude we are sometimes.
I'm ready when you are, my friend.
I'm ready when Phil is.
I'm ready.
Phil is ready. I didn't feel like I gave my jazz hands enough that first time. Can we do it again? Let's
do it.
You got to do it too.
Oh, okay.
So we got to do it. Is that better? Is that a better animated gift?
Somebody put that to music, like 1930s music, and clip it
And we'll
out.
be all set. All right. Whenever you're ready, Phil, we'll go for it.
We're gonna do a talkie.
All right, in 3,
Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that thought pole dancing was a type of clogging they did in Poland, it's SiftPop. Welcome to SiftPop, streaming live most weekends, or available to download later in your podcast feed, unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks.
Woot.
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and he's my forgiving and formidable co-host, Andrew Ormsby.
Hi!
And each week we'll chat about movies, television, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. You're still thinking about the intro.
I really am still thinking about that intro. That whole...
Pole dancing.
Yeah.
It's the type of clogging they do. I thought made sense to me. Made sense to me quite a bit. The reason I bring it up, of course, is because we're going to talk about Hustlers this week.
Yeah, we is.
J-Lo is doing her own Magic Mike movie. I wonder if it's in the same universe. You got the Magic Mike universe and the Ramona universe.
I mean, it's not like there's any crazy interstellar sci-fi stuff happening in either movie. They're both fairly well grounded in reality. Wait, isn't this based on a true story?
This is based on a true story. Yeah, it's an article written about a true story.
So was Magic Mike ever... Well, I mean, technically, it's a show in Vegas now, isn't it? So
I think that's right, yeah.
So there we go.
Technically, it's Channing Tatum's true story.
There you go.
Kind of, not really. All right, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Goldfinch a little bit, too. Award season has officially...
Talk about
well, you'll talk about it, too, just because you haven't seen it. You'll chime in. You'll have questions.
Yeah.
Right? You'll play the Inquisitor.
I cannot recommend this movie enough. And that is a 2 thumbs up recommendation from Gold McFlurry.
No, it's more like, I cannot recommend this movie. Because I haven't seen it, is what you would say. Anyways, we'll also, of course, do all the regular fun stuff. We do have a best ever challenge based on girl gangs. Girl team-up movies. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then we've got our buried treasure as well today. So we'll get into that stuff. Before we do, though, I have to tell a story. A little story time with Aaron.
Ooh.
I went to see, as you know, The Goldfinch. And let's just say the crowd there during opening weekend of The Goldfinch was sparse. But those that were there were even older than I am. By decades. It was a very silver-haired audience there for The Goldfinch. I think they also were, for the most part, I think it's a book, and they were fans of the book. Going to see the movie. I apologize, I didn't know that. It's famous enough that I was not aware. But anyways, I was sitting 2 chairs down from just this beautiful couple of old ladies, and I say that with the utmost respect. But I had decided I was going to have some peanut M&Ms. You know peanut M&Ms?
I've heard of them.
They're my favorite movie snack, right?
Okay.
So I get my peanut M&Ms, I open it, and I'm eating my peanut M&Ms. And she turns to me as soon as we're just a couple minutes into the movie, and she says, "Will you be quiet?" And I'm just sitting there eating my peanut M&Ms, and I'm like, of all the people to get called on the carpet for, poor movie behavior, I should know better, right?
Yeah, really. Where was her Werther's wrapper that she...
Now listen, this is not meant to be any kind of disparaging of our
Did you
wise
go to,
elders.
Alamo or one of those?
No.
Actually...
It was an AMC, so it was just
it's
straight
a
in.
movie theater. People eat popcorn.
See, that was my thinking. I didn't know I had to be concerned about chewing noises. I didn't think that was, but for her, man, the little crinkling of the plastic, and it was too much. And so how do you react in that? What would you do, Andrew?
You don't want to. This is a public. This is a family.
Come on. No, be honest. I'm
not. I would probably give her the finger.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm not built that way.
Yeah.
I put my M&Ms away. I didn't have another one till after the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't want to mess up her, experience, and I was just like, I don't know how to eat these in complete silence. Yeah. So I'll just eat them afterwards. It'll be fine.
And I would be somewhere in between you guys. I would just friendly wave and then keep eating them.
Well, I did consider briefly the passive aggressive thing where it was, just where you start crinkling a little bit more.
Did you buy the candy there, or did you sneak it in?
I bought it there.
Okay, well, there you go. You paid money for it.
That's right.
Yeah, finger.
Yeah, it was movie theater approved. They sold it to me. If the movie theater didn't want the noise, make softer packaging.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you paid $9 for the.
I really did. I paid $1.50 per M&M,
Yeah.
basically for that thing. I'll eat it as loud as I want.
Yeah.
He says after the fact, after completely capitulating in the moment. Anyways, I thought I'd share that because it was not like I was, answering a phone call,
Yeah.
or listening to music. I was eating my movie snack.
Yeah, I totally am on your side there. Now, if you were talking or on the cell phone or anything like that, then I'd do the whole "would you be quiet" thing.
No, I didn't. That's not true. I didn't almost, but I had the thought cross my mind after. So you know how the credits come up, or whatever. After a movie happens, there are credits. You've heard of this thing?
I think so.
Okay, so the credits come up, and immediately these two start chatting about the movie, and I had
would you
that.
be quiet?
Yeah, I had that passing thought
Would you
of
be
like,
quiet?
I'm trying to watch the credits right now.
Yeah.
But no, that's just not me. Anyhow,
it.
I thought I would tell that story. So just so you know, there are people out there that think you shouldn't even be eating in the theater. So
God forbid she goes to an Alamo.
where there's servers walking around and
Hi, can I help you? Would you be quiet?
I'm trying to watch a movie. Quit trying to serve me. All right, let's kick it off with some Do We Care, Andrew.
Every single week, I scour
wow.
the internet to find out what is going on in the entertainment world. I pick 3 topics for us to discuss, and we must decide: do we care
All right.
or not? Number 1, Denzel Washington being eyed to play the MCU's Magneto.
Whoa! Now, is this any more than like conjecture, rumor?
No. Apparently, from what I don't know if it was Feige or not, but it was somebody who's in charge of casting for MCU movies.
Mm-hmm.
They were looking for the possibility of hiring an actor of color to portray Magneto.
Yeah.
And one of the people, like top of the list, was Denzel Washington.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's nothing to this of any kind of substance other than
I guess people
they're
have-
looking
Yeah.
towards this kind of direction. By the way, it's a great direction to look. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm totally on board for Denzel playing Magneto.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that would be so good.
Professor X ain't got nothing on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mutant. My mutant.
My X-Man. Yeah, no, that'd be a lot of fun. I'm totally down for that. No, there's not really much more to say because it's
Then
so much
please.
conjecture. Yeah, then
Please.
make it happen, Kevin.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
Yeah. No, now this next one, we're definitely going to be having some long discussions on.
Ooh,
Yeah.
good.
Bob Iger, you know this man. He kind of owns Disney. Mm-hmm.
I've heard of him, vaguely.
He resigns from Apple's board of directors after the Apple TV Plus launch announcement. Yeah.
It does seem like a conflict of interest.
Yeah. Well, did you hear about like the everything that's coming with the Apple TV Plus?
No, I am very disconnected from Apple Universe, so you'll have to fill me in.
$4.99 a month.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy an Apple product before, and it comes out 2 weeks before Disney Plus, by
Okay.
the way. Yeah.
So like beginning of November.
Yeah, beginning of November, and they already have like trailers for movies and shows and stuff that actually look pretty good. But $4.99 a month. If you buy an Apple product between now and then, you get the first year for free.
Yes. That does not surprise me at all. That
Yeah.
they had to leverage their hardware
Yeah.
in some way or another.
But $4.99 a month, it's cheaper than Disney Plus.
Cheaper than Disney Plus.
If you
what
didn't.
most people are getting it for. I'm getting it for $370 something.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. The streaming wars are real. I think I'm on.
Netflix has got to be like, why?
No,
Why?
Netflix was there first, and they have a built-in audience base, many of which aren't going anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere.
So I don't know that Netflix is worried that much. However, I think I'm on record before, and if I'm not, I'll be on record now. And it's a good time to be on record because now we're after some of the details. I think Apple's streaming service will flop. I think it'll be gone within 5 years. Their back catalog is so weak. I just cannot imagine, unless they have a huge hit that is so pop culture conscious that people just have to subscribe to it. I don't see how they make it work.
Yeah.
I really don't. They're going to have boosted numbers this first year because of that first year free thing, right? So
Yeah.
like this is just normal people who buy their iPhone or buy their iPad or, you know, whatever the case may be. So they'll have that base,
Yeah.
but then I think those people are going away. I think they really need to.
Disney's going to make them go away.
I feel like Apple, their strength has always been in their hardware. And I feel like they are kind of dragging their feet in their hardware. And over long term, that's really going to hurt them.
Well, yeah,
I think-
nobody's ever liked Apple software.
Yeah.
Like, nobody likes the Apple, like, platform
Right.
compared to, like,
Yeah.
Windows or
Right.
or anything like that. It's because it's so confined.
Yeah, it's a closed system.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels very, for lack of a better term, incestuous. You know, everything is within
Yeah, there are
one
definitely
family.
better terms than that. I'm just going to...
Well, I don't mean it in the literal sense, but yeah. So
You're saying this as I'm using a MacBook, an iPad, and a phone.
Oh, yeah, and I got an iPhone.
yeah.
Here's the thing about Apple TV Plus is it's going to be kind of like Prime. Like everyone has Prime, so everyone has Prime TV service or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's going to be like that too. Like you don't have to have an iPhone to get Apple TV Plus for free. And so I feel like a lot of people are going to get this for free and just kind of like, oh, I have it anyways. Like I might as well watch it, you know?
What do you mean you don't have to have an iPhone to?
If you buy like an iPad or an Apple,
but an Apple
Watch,
product,
yeah,
right.
anything like that. So Apple TV.
The difference is Amazon is the king of online shopping, and
Yeah.
Prime is something that people have because they're the king, whereas iPhone is no longer the king of mobile devices. So it's
Are they not?
no.
Do you really think Pixel and all those? I still think that there's way more.
Well, not
iPhones out
market
there.
share wise, at least. Market share wise, Android is the higher percentage owned
Interesting.
of operating system, and a lot of that does have to do with the fact that it's on several different companies' phones. It's not
Yeah.
just on one company's phone. But anyways,
They're not incestuous.
that's right. They expand beyond their gene pool.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I don't want to.
Welcome to Apple. It's nice to meet you.
I don't want to turn this into an like an Apple versus Android kind of thing. I just think these are interesting days for the Apple company, and the other thing is I don't know that their success depends on the streaming service working. So I think if they focused on hardware, that's where their bread and butter would be, and people they have a loyal base who will buy every phone they put out just because it's got that little Apple engraved on the back. So like go with that and make great stuff, you know. It was just no, I'm not going to say that because I am going to turn it into Apple versus Android if I'm not careful. So
There you go.
So we'll move on.
Number 3.
Yep.
Paramount Pictures confirms that they will be remaking the most extraordinary film of all time, Face Off.
I knew we were going to talk about this.
I mean, it's the greatest film ever made.
Well, sure. Feel free.
Even
Feel
the
free
good,
to
the
believe
bad, and the
such.
ugly's got nothing. You know what? I looked it up just because I was curious. This has a 92% positive rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Really?
Yeah.
Audience or critics?
I think critic.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's easily
This movie's
verifiable, so
such-
I will go do that. But
This is such a bad movie.
He's right.
Am
that's
I right?
crazy. Critics-wise, it's at a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And rising, apparently. Because when I checked, I thought it said 92. So
No,
yeah.
it is 92. 90,
Okay.
Yeah, 92.
The word's getting out about this little indie film called Face Off. Oh, man. What I thought was really funny is the person who's writing this movie. I'm not going to attempt to say their name because I'll just butcher it. But it's the same person who did is doing the script for the new Sonic the Hedgehog movie. And I know the writer has no control over this, but I just figured I thought it was funny that people were really digging at the Sonic the Hedgehog movie for bad CGI faces, and now coming to a movie that's all about face
Yeah.
swapping and stuff like that.
That's what made him think about it.
Yeah.
They had to do the face swap on Sonic.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, let's get that person.
Now I want to see the new Sonic the Hedgehog movie with Nicolas Cage's face.
Look, I will say what I always say. Bring me the movie, I'll watch it, and I'll let you know if I think it's a good or a bad movie.
I
want
want John Woo to direct it again. We need more doves, people. There's a great lack of doves in movies nowadays, and John Woo is doing his best to give us that, as well as the two guns through the air.
Yeah. We have a little bit of a dove deficit going on.
The dove deficit.
A deficit.
Yeah.
Maybe, possibly. I am not excited for this just because it is Face Off. I will wait and see. I'm no more excited for this than I am for Mulan or any other remake of any movie. It's just, bring it to me and I shall partake and we shall have a conversation.
Now, here's the thing. You and I differ on the fact that you're not a fan of cringe Cage, as I call it. Cringy Nick Cage movies.
Well, I mean, I'm not a fan because it's cringy Nick Cage, but there's a certain sense of abandon and fun that can come with Con Air or Face Off or those kind of movies, right? Like,
Put the bunny down.
But I think the movie in some ways has to understand what it is. Both of those movies understand what they are. What's strange to me is when you ask Nick Cage to be unhinged in a movie that you're trying to make authentic.
Wicker Man.
Mandy is another one recently where I'm just like, this is stupid.
No, okay, but that's where we're because I can always say, just for the simple fact Nick Cage is in a movie, I will always have as you call it, a separation of what my expectations are. Even if the movie is trying, like with Mandy, which I do think is a good movie, I'll never see it again because it's just so out there. But I appreciated it when I saw it because I just went, you know what, Nick Cage, if it's crazy and ridiculous, then I'll just be on board.
Right, and that's not enough for me.
Yeah.
Did you see Left Behind?
Oh yeah, dude. We have a mutual friend named Brian. And, we saw some Left Behind.
Nice.
Oh yeah,
nice.
we did.
Yeah, that was a strange convergence of awful cultural ideas.
Yeah.
So I will see it. I imagine they'll make it more technology based.
Yeah.
Is my guess that maybe it'll have to do with deep fakes, that kind of thing. Like, you know.
Oh, really? You think?
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I'm guessing. Who knows?
I'll tell you this right now. If Nick Cage isn't in it, and he's not gonna be, I'm not excited. Because the reason why everybody loves this movie is because you have the two most ridiculous actors trying to act like the other actor. You got Nick Cage trying to act like John Travolta, and John Travolta trying to act like Nick Cage.
So are you a fan of Travolta trash as much as you are of Cage trash?
Oh, not as much.
Because Travolta's got a new movie out called The Fanatic that looks a lot like, Trash Volta.
You know what that movie made? $3,000. I'm not even joking. That was its box office intake. $3,000.
Wow.
And I've seen snippets of it, and it looks amazing,
wow.
quote unquote. So, yeah. But yeah, I think, I was just raised on a Cage crap, so.
Cage crap and Trash Volta.
Yeah, Trash Volta, yeah. But that's going to wrap it up for Do We Care?
Very nice. Let's talk some movies, shall we?
Okay.
Let's review Hustlers.
I just want to take care of my grandma, maybe go shopping every once in a while.
When I was a kid, I always wanted to work with animals. I was close.
These Wall Street guys. You see what they did to this country? They stole from everybody. Hardworking people lost everything. And not one of these douchebags went to jail.
The game is rigged, and it does not reward people who play by the rules.
It's like robbing a bank, except you get the keys. Are you in?
Inspired by a New York Magazine article by Jessica Pressler that went viral, former strip club employees band together to turn the tables on their Wall Street clients. The movie is Hustlers, stars J-Lo as Ramona, and then you've got Constance Wu as Destiny. They're kind of the main ones in there, and then Cardi B stepping in a little bit. Julia Stiles playing the journalist that is telling the story. So yeah, and a nice little cameo by Usher in there as well.
Yeah, Yeah.
What'd you think? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
I didn't like it, which
Okay.
honestly I think is worse than hated it, because I don't care about this movie enough to hate it. You got to be passionate in your hate.
Right.
And I don't care about this movie at all.
Yes, the opposite of love isn't hate; it's indifference.
Exactly.
And it sounds like you're having indifference towards this movie.
Yes.
Well, this could be an interesting conversation. I really like this movie.
Really?
Yeah, there's.
Hey, that's going to be the easy joke for this movie. If you walk away from
it's
this
about
movie
strippers?
because it's about strippers,
Right.
people are just going to go, "Yeah, you did," stuff like that. I like this movie. Yeah. No.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, there's obviously stripping in the movie, and there's nudity in the movie, but it's not J-Lo or Constance
background.
Wu. Yeah, it's a lot of background stuff. And to me, and maybe we'll just start here. It didn't seem what's the word I'm looking for? Salacious. It just seemed like natural to that environment. Like the camera wasn't focusing on these things. It wasn't. There's a difference in the way, I've talked about this often, the way Wonder Woman is shot, depending on whether Patty Jenkins is directing or a male director is directing. And you can tell this is, this. I think it's a female director.
Yeah, Lauren Scafaria.
Because the nudity in this, or that aspect of these strippers being backstage, not being fully clothed, that kind of stuff, it's just a normal part of their life, and it's not sensualizing it or making it something that is overtly sexual in those moments. And even the stripping is interesting because it's shot from, for the most part, a little bit of a distance, because it wants to show you the male reaction as much as it's interested in the camera showing you, the sensuality of the dance movements, those kind of things. I only bring that up because we kind of started there with that's the joke, in this movie. But I actually thought it was handled pretty well. It was one of the things I appreciated about the movie is that you could tell that wasn't the point. Yeah. That's not the point of this movie.
It's not Magic Mike, which is about...
Exactly. Magic Mike in many ways is about the female gaze or the sensual gaze on these men as they strip. And that definitely isn't what's going on here, at least as far as I could sense what the director was intending to do here. I guess maybe because I liked it more, maybe I'll start and just chat about some of the things I like. I think it has to start with the discussion of the performances. I think J-Lo and Constance Wu are spectacular in this movie.
Chemistry is good.
I think the chemistry is amazing, and I think even there are moments, specifically Constance Wu, and I do like J-Lo in this, and she's actually getting Oscar buzz for this part. J-Lo is, which is fine. That I think she's great in it, but I'm more surprised the attention isn't going to Constance Wu. Because there are some moments in her conversation with the journalist in this movie that blew my mind. Like, I was just so there with her, and it felt so real, like that she was experiencing these emotions of that relationship and the change of that relationship and all those kind of things. And those performances are, to me, what sell me on probably the primary strength of this movie, which is its empathy. This is a movie that is definitely wanting to take what these characters have done, not absolve them of the wrong things they've done, but give them empathy in a way that these are real, excuse the phrase, fleshed out human beings in this film. And I thought that was really well done. So that was probably the primary thing for me that made it to a movie where I go, yeah, I like that movie. That was good. So now, did you disagree with that? Did you think the performances weren't quite that good?
Performances are good.
Okay.
They're really good.
Okay.
Actually, all around, I think performances are really good. But obviously, like you said, J-Lo and especially Constance Wu. Chemistry's really good. Now, I do have issues with dialogue and stuff, but that's not performances. Okay. That's, just writing. I will say this right now. I hate the script. I think the script is horrible. As far as from a dialogue standpoint, like the story itself is fascinating, but I think the way it's handled is incredibly lacking, which I'll go into more when we get to negatives. But
I mean, since we're there, I'm curious as to could you expand on that, or maybe give an example, or just let me know kind of what you're thinking, because I'm not saying I came out going, wow, what a script. I'm just saying I don't remember having those moments.
There's a moment, or there's two moments I'll just talk about real quick. They both deal with J-Lo and what her character is asked to do. Most times she's giving a really good performance, but from an actual script standpoint, it's really bad. Where Constance Wu is on the phone with a client and he's really upset, and then J-Lo is like trying to wrestle the phone away. It's out of nowhere. There's no reason why J-Lo would be kind of aggressive and violent towards Constance Wu. It was just jarring.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then there's another.
So what I hear you saying, and let me just clarify your thought here. Are you talking about dialogue, or are you talking about plot, like character?
Maybe this next
growth
example will
okay.
kind of give you a better.
Okay, sure.
So there's a part where J-Lo is, I guess this doesn't really spoil it, but she's being interrogated, and she says, Tony would never allow this to happen. I'm going to give him a call. And then the cops say, who gave her phone back? No point, because I looked this up afterwards. There is no character in the movie named Tony. We never meet a Tony. We never hear about a Tony. It's a scene dedicated to a joke that has no other purpose in it than to be that joke.
Than to show that she had her phone somehow, that she was sneaky enough to keep it or get it back or
and
whatever.
That's a good example of stuff I saw throughout the entire movie. Of moments that are only done for joke and they have no real... what am I trying to say? No real ramifications or plot driving forces. So if you have a whole bunch of dialogue you think is just specifically to either make people laugh or to make people go, ooh, look what's going on there, it's not driving a story forward. Now, obviously, it's not the whole movie.
Well, sure, yeah. And I certainly didn't feel that way.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a missing piece that in that moment or other moments that impacted me. And maybe I was more swept up in it than you, and so I just wasn't thinking about those kind of things, which is, it's fine.
Yeah.
I do think, did you think the movie was funny, or because you felt like that stuff was, and I'm kind of putting words in your mouth, forced or...
Yeah, no, I never... there are obviously funny moments. I didn't think it's a funny movie.
Okay.
There was like
I laughed a lot.
There was like one or two moments where I went, huh. But there was never a laugh out loud moment for me, not one.
Okay, I laughed several times, and definitely the crowd I saw it with thought it was funny because there was a lot of laughter throughout. And maybe we just had different crowds too. That can be an interesting part of the experience too. But man, I felt like they were so locked into that chemistry and so locked into those performances. That their relationship was, because there was a humor element to their relationship, I felt like all that stuff worked with them.
How about this then? I think the movie starts off on a really rocky footing for me, and maybe I just never recovered from that because I never understood why J-Lo's character really took Constance Wu under her wing. There's even a really heavy-handed metaphor of taking under the wing at the very, very beginning of the movie. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. But I never understood, what did J-Lo see in Constance Wu besides, being pretty, what did she say, pretty Asian and young or something like that?
Yeah.
I'm like, beyond that, you can't base a lifelong friendship based on somebody being pretty Asian and young, Well,
but that was in response, no, I'll push back on that a little bit because that answer was in response to whether or not she could be a good stripper.
Yeah.
It was like, what are you talking about? You're pretty Asian and young. You can do this. That was a response to that. It wasn't about her being friends with her.
Yeah, but maybe it just seemed like a really rocky, why did J-Lo's character decide, you know what, this one? But
why do any of us decide? You know what I mean? It just happened. You click with somebody and you have a moment and it's it builds something special. You can tell that you kind of jive with them or, it just happens.
Just for me, I never really got that footing on why these two became friends, other than the fact they worked in the same place. I never saw anything like a shared interest or anything like that.
Other than fleecing Wall Street men.
Well, that came afterwards,
dollars. I'm just going to go ahead and say this is a part of the plot that is not a spoiler, so I'm going to talk about, it is the key to kind of what happens with them, but it's not like this is being hidden or is something that's a shocking plot movement or whatever, but they do go into actually stealing money from these guys in very nefarious ways. And this is the part of the movie for me that I struggled with the most. It started to, and actually, honestly, this movie is like Goodfellas in a lot of ways. There's an element to this where validating
bad actions and championing.
Yeah, there's something about the movie really toes a line of making you root for them to destroy these men.
Yeah.
And doesn't really wrestle with the fact that two things can be true. These men can be absolute pigs who do not deserve the money they have and have got it in bad ways. That can be true.
Yeah.
It also can be true that it's not okay for you to drug them, steal money from them, and, you know, put their lives in danger. You know what I mean? Like, both of those things can be true, and the movie doesn't seem to want to wrestle with that, other than allowing us to see the natural consequences of it, which is good, which is important, you know. I did have an interesting thought, and this will be, I guess, as spoiler as you get with a true story, because I'm going to tell you what happens to these women. So if you don't want to know that, you know,
sure,
possibly jump ahead. But we're not doing a spoiler on this, and I think this is something worth talking about. But they have varying degrees of punishment for what they've done when they are caught.
And
right?
It's so nothing.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
And I got to thinking, like, wow. I mean, the amount of money they made and spent. Like, if somebody were to come to you and offer you, here's the trade. You can be on probation for 5 years.
Yeah.
Right? So you're not going to prison. You're just on probation. You're, you know, stuck to a certain area. You have to, you know, check in with your probation officer. You can't do these certain things for 5 years. And if you do that, I'll give you $1 million.
Yeah.
I might take the money, guys. Like, you know, that doesn't see. So there was this thing with this movie where I was like, and this is kind of outside the film, but I'm going, wait, is our justice system right? Like, this seems, I don't know. And of course I wasn't there for the trial. I don't know, you know. Mm-hmm. And again, in possibly.
Apparently Tony's a really good litigator.
Yes, exactly. So I don't want to take that too lightly, because I know there are so many factors involved.
Yeah.
But it was a thought I had at the end, which was like, man, our justice system is weird sometimes.
Here's another reason why I really didn't enjoy the movie all that much, because I never saw these women in a very desperate scenario or lifestyle or anything like that, where I'm like, I don't understand your motivation for risking all the good things that you are showing me that they have. Mm-hmm. You know, like if they were, you know, like down on their luck, or, you know, like in poverty or anything like that. J-Lo has like a private maid in a super nice apartment in Manhattan, you know, before she decides to start stealing from, you know, and life is now hard because she can't afford a maid. I mean, I'm not trying to say that, you know, people don't, you know, money isn't always, you know, meaning that you don't have problems. But at the same time, I found it really hard to relate to, you know, somebody's struggles who has so much, if that makes sense.
I think the movie does, one of the things it does try to wrestle with is where is the line between survival and greed? And I think that is a theme in this movie, where these women are...
I never saw survival. I only saw greed.
Okay, so the survival is supposed to be shown in taking care of your kids and taking care of your mom. You know, it's supposed to be shown in the way that everybody's taking advantage of you.
Yeah.
You know, towards the beginning, it shows how for every, you know, dollar they make, everybody's asking for a handout, you know, the bosses. And if you don't do that, then, you know, you're probably in a bad situation.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things it's trying. It's almost like in some ways, this would be a much bigger extent, but it's that same thing as when we talk about athletes being millionaires and then wanting more money from the owners who are billionaires. It's kind of that same thing of, come on, you're a millionaire, man. What are you arguing about? But at the same time, if the billionaires are making billions off of your work, and you're just making millions. I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where you can start to see at least the equity issues.
Yeah.
And so I think the movie is trying to sell us that as quote unquote survival. I'm like you. It's hard for me to buy as well. I totally get that. But one of the things I loved about the movie is it let me into that mindset and how I felt was an authentic and empathetic way. So it allowed me to experience this situation through their eyes and to hear their ideas on those thoughts. Does that make sense? Even if in my brain I can't make some of it work.
Yeah.
I'm allowed the opportunity to watch them figure out where that line between survival and greed is, and we'd probably draw it different. In fact, Constance Wu's character, Destiny and Ramona, drew that line differently, right? Yeah. And so that's part of the fascinating part about this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Another issue I have with the movie is the fact that they say, Wall Street is, the enemy here, but they keep showing so many different people and people that aren't even on Wall Street that they're conning, that I'm not sure who. You can't give me so many different faces for a villain. And so many, just because somebody's a sleazebag, doesn't mean that they deserve to be drugged and robbed.
Agree. Totally agree. And that is one thing I don't think the movie wrestles with enough.
Yeah. Like, if you want this movie to be about these women who take advantage of the Wall Street elite who, after the market crash in 2008, made away with all that money, then only show me them. Don't show me architects or the poor guys.
Well, but the one way the movie does attempt to wrestle with this, and it's not a great attempt, and again, I'm really kind of with you, but it does use the non-Wall Street part of this to have I think there's one client.
Doug.
Yeah. Yes. Doug is the way this movie wrestles with it. Doug gets the moment to go, you're destroying my life. Like, I'm not this Wall Street, guy. This is so that is that one peek in there is through that, but I don't know that it's enough.
Yeah. Oh, there's like a couple montages of them meeting, different guys. I'm struggling with, I didn't see them do anything wrong. You're just telling me.
The guys you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
When they're having the montage of them all having drinks with just this guy and then this guy and this guy. I didn't see this guy or this guy or this guy until you told me, or until I saw them, having drinks with these girls. Like, that doesn't automatically make them a bad guy. You telling me, like, in a montage, you just want me to assume, okay, that guy there, he worked on Wall Street, apparently. You want me to make all these assumptions. And in a movie like this, I don't feel comfortable making those assumptions that every single one of those people is bad. Yeah. Just because you're showing me them.
Yeah, and that's what I mean when I say the movie doesn't wrestle with it enough.
Yeah.
It very much, in fairness, it's not necessarily what the movie wants to be about thematically. It wants to be about how these women see this world, and that is definitely what they had to do. They had to see these men as all the enemy, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, they couldn't do what they did, and so their perspective is that anybody that is in that situation is the enemy, and so the movie kind of gives it to us that way as well. But I needed more of, I shouldn't say I needed, I think it would have been beneficial to step back, have the movie perspective step back a little bit from their perspective, and to make a little bit of at least wrestling with the moral conundrum of what's going on there. The only way they wrestle with it is Doug and Consequence. Those are that I saw were really the only
100% right.
two ways that the movie made a small attempt to wrestle with morality.
I just remember something I actually do really like about this movie. The way audio is used in this movie.
Yes, I was just about, that was the one positive I hadn't gotten to.
Yeah. there's like scenes where like on the record and off the record, like when it's off the record, there's no dialogue.
Yeah.
It's just the lips moving.
Yeah.
Or like if somebody's mic'd or something, it sounds like all the audio you're hearing is through that mic. You know, I thought that stuff was really clever. I really do like the way they played
that
with
was my one final positive. Was I think this movie technically is made well. I think it makes some really interesting production decisions that are unique and serve what the movie is trying to do. The sound is definitely one of those for sure. So yeah, I wanted to mention that as well. So yeah, I think that's a good place to kind of move on. Unless
There's
you have
a mid-credit scene.
Yes, there is. Thank you.
You don't really need to stay for it. It's just more slow-mo of them back in the strip club.
Yeah,
With Usher.
with more ushering.
Yeah.
Ushers in the rest of the credits. Anything else?
No.
I don't think I have anything else. I am. I understand and yet still am a bit surprised at the Oscar buzz for this movie. I get it, but yeah, it's kind of like...
That's shocking to me. I think this is a nothing movie.
Yeah. Obviously, you didn't like it as much as I did, but...
No, I really didn't. The lack of consequence, the lack of... And by that I mean, like, what happens to these girls at the end, you know? The lack of consequence, the lack of... I never really felt like they were in danger either, you know? So, like, I was just kind of lulled throughout this entire movie. Like, there was never like a really tense or climactic scene, you know, keep me gripped or anything. And then there's scenes of them going on shopping sprees and stuff like that. And like, I never got the euphoria of feeling good for, you know, all the stuff they're getting. I never felt tense. We never, if something was going wrong. And then whenever it came time for consequences, nothing happened. So for me, this movie is just like throughout. That's why I don't care about this movie.
I was moved. I think that's why it was. I think that's what battled that lull for me. Is I bought into the empathy of the movie and the empathy of these characters, and so I was moved by some of the things they were dealing with. Because at its core, this is a movie about friendship as well. As much as it is about greed, it's about friendship.
I will give the movie that it's really Fast and the Furious family-ish.
Yeah, there's definitely that element to it, right?
Yeah.
So that I think is what moved me and kind of kept me involved in it, was just the emotion of buying into these characters. So there you go. That's Hustlers. It should be out for a while, and we'll see how. Man, J-Lo, 50 years old, man.
It's crazy. She looks younger than
She's
me.
incredible. It's insane. All right, let's move on to The Goldfinch.
This is the one I was talking about.
When I lost her, I lost sight of any landmark that might have led me someplace happier.
You're the boy, aren't you? The boy whose mother was killed.
Theodore Decker was 13 years old when his mother was killed in a bombing at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. The tragedy changes the course of his life, sending him on a stirring odyssey of grief and guilt, reinvention and redemption, and even love. Through it all, he holds on to one tangible piece of hope from that terrible day, a painting of a tiny bird chained to its perch. And you know what that bird was, Andrew?
Was it a goldfish?
It was the goldfinch. All right, this is definitely Oscar bait, and we are firmly in award season. And you know what? I don't know that we're going to talk about this one for long. I don't have a ton to say about this. Certainly don't need to go into spoilers for this. Andrew, you haven't seen it. I guess I'll give my liked it, loved it, disliked it, hated it, was just okay. Yeah. I'm firmly in the disliked it. So yeah, this was not a great movie experience for me. Another reason I probably don't want to talk about it for that long.
Does it say something that it actually intrigues me more, the fact that you don't like it?
Of course.
No. What I mean by that is, you know, with a movie this, like, I'd never planned on seeing this movie.
Right.
I really didn't.
Right.
But the fact that you say you didn't like it actually kind of got me like, ooh, what's wrong with this movie? You know? Because it just seemed like,
it's boring. That's what's
boring.
wrong.
Yeah.
But before I go further into that, just knowing as little as you know about it right now, what would be your main questions going into it? Like, what would you want to know from somebody who had seen it?
Is Ansel Elgort any good in this movie?
Yeah, he's great. Ansel Elgort's a great actor. I don't think he is the problem here. He is given a character whose, like, the definition of the character is so withdrawn that it takes a special kind of actor to be able to pull that off and make it interesting. And I just don't know that. Well, you know what? I should not put it that way, because honestly, there are a lot of people making choices as to how this character appears on screen, and I just didn't buy that part of it. It was very much just everything was blah.
What about Nicole?
I mean, she's Nicole. She's great.
Well, I'll say that's when you say she's Nicole, that can be like Oscar worthy, you know?
Yeah. And here's another part of the problem is Nicole and Ansel really aren't in this movie that much. Nicole in it more than Ansel Elgort is.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, because Nicole gets to play young Nicole when Ansel Elgort is played by a 13-year-old boy.
Yeah. And
then also she plays old Nicole when Ansel Elgort is, able to be the character.
Yeah.
Here. There's a secondary character, a Russian character called Boris.
Yeah.
That ruins this movie.
Oh, really?
I hated that character so much. And that character is so integral to the story in some plot moving ways. That
is it a performance thing or is it a script thing?
I think it's a script thing. I think it's a script thing and maybe a direction thing. I don't like the way this movie was put together, was directed. John Crowley directed it, and it's interesting because I've never really known much of his stuff, so I didn't know what to expect. But yeah, I was not involved in any kind of deep way with the way...
He directed Brooklyn.
He directed Brooklyn?
Yeah.
I did not know that. I do love Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. That's the power of Saoirse Ronan, apparently.
Yeah.
Brooklyn's a great movie.
Yeah.
What happened to you, John? What happened?
Here's another question I have. Is this linear or does it go back and forth?
It goes back and forth.
Is that to the movie's detriment or is it fine?
Well, a lot of times what I will say with movies that have two different timelines that go back and forth is a problem you can run into is one timeline's more exciting than the other, and then you get mad every time it goes to the boring one.
Yeah.
They're both boring in this case. So
oh, no.
It's just like every time it switched, it was like, oh, not back to this. It's like...
Because I'm trying to think of the movie that had Shailene Woodley in it, Adrift. Where you really appreciated it going back and forth.
Yes.
And I'm like, man, I really wish this was just a linear story. So I'm always curious about people's takes on linear versus, going back and forth.
I also think that this movie is very dreary, and it's hard to sit through in a lot of ways. Not just because it's boring, but because this kid and what happened to him, everything happens to him, and so he becomes kind of this character that isn't self-actualized in a lot of ways. Everything is just...
He's a Job.
Yeah. There's this element to the central character that doesn't have any kind of driving thing that I could root for or want. I just feel sorry for him. And that's fine. That's an emotion. That is an emotion. But I just feel sorry for this kid in so many ways. So,
well, there's a pawn element to him, he can't be an antagonist if he's just a pawn to everything that's happening around him.
Right.
So,
yeah,
I totally get that.
And I also think the other part of this is the missing pages aspect. I really feel like this is one of those things where I can feel the missing pages of the book. And that is the hardest thing and possibly the most important thing for a movie adaptation to do is to not feel like you're missing pages. And that is the reason movie adaptations have to change the story from the book, because you cannot tell the actual story from the book and take pages out. You actually have to change it so that those pages never needed to exist. And it didn't feel like this movie did that in a way that was satisfactory. I could just tell that there was too much here that was trying to be squeezed into this package. The relationships that I wanted to buy into, I just didn't have enough time to. There's an interesting thing between him and Jeffrey Wright's character. Hobie is the name of the character in this movie.
Love that man.
And Jeffrey Wright's great. But in this movie, I just didn't have what I needed to really invest in their relationship in the way that I wanted to. And it's just because it's trying to do so much. Like I mentioned, the Boris character, there's something that is supposed to be so beautiful about his relationship with this Boris character that makes what happens later all the more traumatic or interesting or engaging, but I don't have enough time to buy into it. I just don't. You know what I'm saying? So there's all throughout, even the Sarah Paulson character. Yeah. It was one of those things where I was more bored than excited to see what was going on. I also don't think the movie really has much of a through line plot wise, which is okay again if everything else is interesting and I'm just experiencing the world of these characters.
Yeah.
But because I wasn't experiencing the characters and the relationships well, not also having like a clear plot line of here's what I want to happen, here's what I think's going to happen. Oh no, is it going to match up? Like there's none of that here. It's just existing.
That's a shame.
With kind of this boring story. So yeah, afterwards I kind of looked. It's 24% on Rotten Tomatoes, so I'm not alone here.
Wow.
This is out of the awards race. Like this is not happening.
Man, 2019.
I know.
We were talking about how we were hoping the back half of 2019 was going to make up.
Isn't it a great start?
This is crazy.
It's got to be good stuff's coming. I hear amazing buzz about Knives Out. I cannot wait for Knives Out.
I'm hearing crazy good reviews on Joker, too.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Good stuff on Joker. That'll be coming even sooner than Knives Out. So,
Is that next week or 2 weeks?
Joker?
Yeah.
It's
3 weeks?
2 weeks. 2 or 3. It may be 3 weeks. No, it's 3 weeks.
Yeah.
We're still 3 weeks out from Joker.
Yeah.
Next week is Ad Astra, Downton Abbey, and Rambo.
Oh, man. Actually, I really want to see all three of those.
So
actually, 2 of those.
I actually am seeing all 3 of those this week. So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I don't have, unless you have any other questions. I
really don't.
I mean, Luke Wilson isn't great in this, and it was kind of a bummer because I like Luke Wilson.
Sarah,
Paulson?
Yeah, Sarah.
She's not given much to do.
Yeah.
Her and Luke Wilson are a couple in this movie, and Luke Wilson plays his father, who comes back into the picture, and he just exists to be pain to this child, and it's like, really, do I need more of this? Can we have something redemptive somewhere in this story? So yeah,
it sounds like they just took the book Child Called It, and they only did the first half of it. Like, man, something good happened. I just want something good to happen.
I think it's probably a totally different experience if you've read the book. But I have not.
Apparently not, because I'm sure that there's some critics out there who read the book that.
Well, I heard those ladies next to me talking about it. They seem to have a good time. So.
Man,
when you weren't crunching and munching.
I was about to say this is not a joke, and this is a truly sincere question. Do you think that those ladies had any effect on your movie-going experience?
It's a great question. It's quite possible. I'm always open to those kind of things impacting, and I would say the reason I'm pretty sure not has to do that I have seen, again, confirmation through other reviewers that I trust that they had the same experience.
Okay.
So that's always helpful. If I had come out of it going, what an awful movie, and I looked and, the people I usually love are like, man, the beauty and the themes and all that, I've been like, oh, man, they messed that up. If only I'd been able to eat my M&Ms.
Yeah.
I'd have enjoyed the Goldfinch.
You were hangry.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
No, I don't think the Goldfinch is worth your time.
Okay.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Before we move on to the best ever challenge today, just a huge thank you to our SiftPop members for making this possible. We love you guys. I've been absolutely floored by the amount of support that's come in. I'm actually this week planning to get up on my roof and sign some shingles for our new members of the roofing crew. So you should see those
There's
posts.
no snow in your Aaron.
I'm not shaking your your death hand. You're trying to send me to my
The hand of Thanatos. You're not going to give it a shake.
No, it's not happening. Yeah, so it's been absolutely humbling to see your support of what goes on at SiftPop. Some pretty cool things brewing on the channel. Thank you so much for making those possible. Support starts at $3 a month to be a SiftPop member. You can check out all the fun things that you get at patreon.com/SiftPop. And thank you very, very much. On to the best ever challenge. Let's go with girl gangs, girl power, girl groups.
Yeah.
Movies that feature girl team-ups, much like Hustlers did.
I might have cheated on my number one.
Listen, I have nothing I can say after Finding Nemo last week as a clown movie.
Yeah.
So, you know what somebody reminded me on Twitter afterwards? There's a clown in Inside Out. I could have gone with Inside Out.
Oh, yeah.
There's a clown in one of the worlds. Oh, well. So much for that. I'm excited to hear your cheat.
Yeah.
At your number one.
5 to number one. I went first last time. I want you to go first.
I have The Heat at number 5.
Okay.
I had a lot of fun with this movie.
I didn't like it.
I have watched it once more since the first watch, and I really think Sandra Bullock is an underrated comic actress.
I'll give you that.
She is so funny. The other movie that proves this to me is the movie she did with
Miss Congeniality.
Well, Miss Congeniality is great, but I was going to say the movie she did with Ryan Reynolds.
The one where the proposal.
The Proposal.
Yeah.
I think it's called The Proposal. She keeps up with Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Like, Reynolds is hilarious, and she is just like right there with him. I think Sandra's great in this. I'm not a huge Melissa McCarthy fan, but I think she's good in this. I don't love everything about this movie, but I do have a really good time watching it.
Nice.
So that's my number 5.
Cool.
Yep.
I'm gonna go with The League of Their Own.
Yep, that was in my honorable mentions.
Nice. You got a whole group of just amazing people in this movie. Madonna up there with Tom Hanks and Rosie O'Donnell. I mean, this is just a crazy cast. It's a fun movie, but with a little bit of an inspirational story to it, you know?
Yeah.
It's a league of their own, you know? It's it's a movie that if you can make a movie about baseball that I like, that's impressive.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
You're not a baseball fan?
I hate baseball so much.
And you hate most baseball movies?
Actually, the more I think about it, if there's a baseball movie that's like the only reason I like baseball is because they make good baseball movies, like Field of Dreams.
There are a lot of great baseball movies.
Yeah, even Moneyball.
Moneyball's a great movie.
But that's all about, I just think the sport is so boring.
It is.
They montage it in movies, like they give you, the good, like, oh, they got the hit. They don't spend like the 4 hours of like the left fielder just going.
Yeah,
they don't do that,
But as with a lot of things, a lot of it has to do with the amount of investment you've done in understanding it too, right? Like if you understand all the technical aspects of the baseball game, those kind of things, it can be a little more exciting. And it's even more exciting if you have a rooting interest, right? Like that's why
angels flying around down there picking up Owen Wilson, or not Owen Wilson, but Matthew McConaughey,
or a golden retriever, playing,
exactly.
that always works well.
Yeah.
No, this is a great choice.
Yeah.
Immediately, anybody mentions League of Their Own, I'm like, are you crying? Are you crying? There's no crying in baseball.
Oh,
such
Tom
a great
Hanks.
delivery. Oh my goodness, so good.
So that's my number 5.
Number 5. My number 4 is Widows.
I still have not seen this movie.
You have to see Widow. You have to see Widows.
I really do want to.
It's very, very good. Yeah. Again, there are things I don't completely buy into in this movie.
What's
but
this Antoine Fuqua?
But no. This was what's his name?
Steve McQueen. That's actually who I meant, because I was thinking like, yeah, it's the same guy who did like 12 Years a Slave and Shame and Hunger. And all
Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
It's brilliantly directed. I love the performances. I am currently in the if Cynthia Erivo is in it, I'm gonna see it because she blows my mind mode, and she's great in this too. So yeah, I do enjoy Widows, and I would highly encourage you to find some time to check it out. So that's my number 4.
Nice.
What do you got at number 4?
I'm gonna go with The Help.
Oh, I didn't even have this in my honorable mention.
Oh, really? love
guess
this
I didn't
movie.
think of it as a team up movie, but you're right. I think that's fair.
The maids teaming up, and even the way that Emma Stone and Jessica Chastain kind of team up. They're like, we're on the I hesitate to call it the Reformation Committee or whatever, but the people who realize that this is not going the way it should. But it's like two team ups that are kind of on the same side that are still from different worlds, I guess you could say. I think this movie's powerful, and it has a very jarring poop element to it. But I think Viola Davis just commands this movie.
She's so great.
I mean,
she's so very great.
Yeah.
Yep. Two movies in a row with Viola in it.
She knows how to get that girl power going. So that's my number 4. What you got 3?
No Viola Davis in this. I'm going with Pitch Perfect at my number 3.
Cool. Yeah, I will agree with you on that one. But not that I have it, but I like this movie. It was in my honorable mentions.
I don't think they have captured the magic of the first one since. The sequels are fine.
That's generous.
I enjoy the sequels for what they are. That could just be, my love of the characters and the performers. But that first one is magic. It is one of those moments. It is possibly the defining moment when somebody asked me, what's a movie you had zero expectations or even low expectations for that you walked out of going, that's a great movie?
John Wick.
There you go. There's your answer. Pitch Perfect is mine. Yeah. I remember walking out of Pitch Perfect going, what a blast. Yeah. And I walked into that movie just not expecting anything. So it's a ton of fun. That can
definitely have a huge effect on how you leave a movie. If you just go in with like nothing. And because I'm just thinking about John Wick, I was like, oh man, I'm going to go see Keanu Reeves do another action movie where somebody kills his dog and he just goes crazy. And then I left that movie going, wow, the choreography, there was actually, interesting world building and all this stuff. So I can kind of relate because the chemistry between this group of girls in this movie is otherworldly good. It's up there with like some of you think of like, man, you got all of those great people together and they worked so well together.
Yeah.
Anna Kendrick's just hilarious, and it gave me an appreciation for her a cappella. I mean, they're good. They're really good.
Yeah, that is the other thing. The soundtrack to these movies is so much fun to listen to. It's funny you were talking about low expectations, and I just heard an interview with Mark Duplass, and he was talking about how one of the biggest career decisions he made was to shoot for low expectation creative content. He literally thinks about creating things where there's barely any expectations for, and then succeeding in those things.
This is the movie he did with this is the one a friend to the time travel movie that he did.
I'm not sure. He's done some great stuff. Currently, the Room 104 is what I always tell everybody about. The anthology series that he's doing is pretty impressive. Somebody to love, someone to love.
Safety Not Guaranteed.
Safety Not Guaranteed, yeah.
That's the time travel movie. Love that movie so much.
So
I want to rewatch that.
So anyways, that just reminded me of him when you said that.
Yeah. My number 3?
Number 3!
Annihilation.
Yeah, I got to trump you on that one.
Fair enough.
I will do my number 2 then.
Okay.
Mad Max Fury Road.
Trump. Okay, that was the one I was unsure of.
Yeah.
That's my number 1.
Well, we both have our number 1s now.
Yeah.
That we each had at number 2, apparently.
Yeah. But yeah,
is that right? We just have 2 to talk about, right? I
have not done my number. I haven't even mentioned my number 2.
Oh, you had Annihilation at number 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about your number 2 before we talk about our number 1s.
Mean Girls.
Oh yeah, it was the top of my honorable mention list.
I love this movie.
Yeah, it's great.
I don't think this movie gets enough credit for how good it is.
I think you're right.
I think that people just think that it's a teen, girly movie. No, there's some really amazing performances. There's some good writing. It's funny. This movie's hilarious.
Yeah.
I think that it's such a shame to see wasted potential, I guess you could say. But you look at Lindsay Lohan, I'm like, oh man, if she could have just kept on this road, she would have been so good. And who else is in this? Is Amy Adams, or not Amy Adams, Andrew, why don't you
I think the movie's very quotable.
Rachel McAdams is who I was thinking, not Amy Adams.
Yeah.
I sometimes quote this movie. One of my favorite lines in any comedy in the last 10 years is when she says, "Stop trying to make fetch happen." It's because they're like, that's using like a "it's so cool" kind of thing, but they say it's so fetch, and I think that stuff is really funny. So.
I like, it's Wednesday, we wear pink.
Yeah, Mean Girls is great.
Yeah.
Ready to talk about our number ones?
Yeah, I'll let you.
We'll talk about Annihilation first, since it's at my number one, and you had it at number 3.
Okay.
This movie has grown on me, and I loved it when I saw it. But I just think it's absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, and intense.
Scare Bear.
So intense. Yeah.
Scare Bear, man. That's the total opposite of a Care Bear, is a Scare Bear. And there is definitely a Scare Bear in this movie.
Yeah, the Scare Bear stare.
Yeah. I like the fact that this movie doesn't force the fact that it's a girl team-up movie.
Yeah, no, it just is what it is.
Yeah, it's like, because Natalie Portman says, wait, so there's 4 female scientists? And they go, no, it's just 4 scientists. The fact that we're female is just a coincidence or something like that. So, but no, you got so many amazing people in this movie. And Natalie Portman just, chewing up scenery in this movie. For as crazy and outlandish as this movie is, that it's still able to captivate you and rein you in and make you believe in it, says something about how good it is. The ending of this movie is trippy beyond belief, and I've heard so many different theories about where this movie goes.
Yeah, what's yours?
I think that her and who played her husband in this? Was it what's his name? Poe Dameron.
Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac, yeah. I think that both her and Oscar Isaac are actually aliens at the end of this movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that the alien changes places with them. Spoilers if you haven't seen Annihilation. Yeah.
I think we're okay.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend Annihilation. Obviously, it's at my number 1.
Yeah.
Alex Garland is definitely one of my directors to watch after Ex Machina.
Does he have
and
anything else coming out soon?
Annihilation. There is something next on his list, but I can't remember what it is. But anyways, I can look that up while you're chatting about our other number 1, which was my number 2.
Yep. Upcoming projects real quick. Halo. That's what it was. But anywho, Mad Max Fury Road. I was kind of hesitant on this one because I don't know if it was really a team up or if it was just, trying to save this group of girls.
I think it counts.
Okay.
I mean, it's a bit of a stretch, but it's no Finding Nemo.
Yeah. I've said over and over how much I love this movie, from the visual effects to the fact that a lot of it was practical, and the use of color in this. I love the fact that it's a Mad Max movie that's really a Furiosa movie.
Yeah, totally.
Because Mad Max is kind of he's a side character to Charlize in this. I love this movie so much.
Yeah.
It's simple. This movie is simple. Girls trying to escape, bad guys chasing them. That's the plot of this movie. That is literally the entire plot of this movie.
Yeah.
It's simple, and because it could have easily been, let's try and get back into the Mad Max and try and build on this world, and are we going to try to rebuild society? Nope. Girls.
Yeah.
Go get them.
Yeah, it is an incredible film.
Yeah.
It is incredible. One of the films that reminds me what an incredible year for movies 2015 was.
Oh, man.
It's funny. I think I have Mad Max Fury Road at 5th currently, but that's just because Inside Out came out that year, Force Awakens came out that year, The Martian came out that year, The Revenant came out that year. There was a Mission Impossible movie that year. Spotlight's a great movie. It's one of those things.
You had it at number 5?
I don't remember if I had it at
I have
number
it
5.
at number 5 too. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have Star Wars, The Revenant, The Big Short, Spotlight, and then Mad Max.
Yeah, Big Short, Brooklyn,
Room came out.
I
that
know.
year.
Brooklyn came out.
Straight Outta
Creed.
Compton.
Yeah, it's just 2015 was a ton of fun. So But I always think of when I hear Mad Max Fury Road, I'm like, I really like that movie. Why wasn't it my favorite movie of that year? And I was like,
that movie was that year was awesome.
That year was a blast.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2019. Look at your brother 2015 and how good he's done.
2018 was great too.
Why can't you be like him?
Yeah.
Come on. There you go. Those are our top 5. Let's talk about possible honorable mentions. Did you have any?
You kind of mentioned mine, like Pitch Perfect and.
I would mention. Let's see. I'll kind of go in reverse-ish order. They're not necessarily in order. Bring It On is worth mentioning.
Yeah, I remember that movie.
First Wives Club, at least worth mentioning. Ocean's 8. I don't think either of us loved it.
I didn't like it.
But you know, it's definitely one. Let's see. Little Women, whatever version you want to pick, probably worth mentioning. Mystic Pizza. Did you ever see Mystic Pizza?
Oh, is that really a girl team-up movie, or is it just waitresses?
I don't know. Is Hustlers just strippers? I don't. What do you mean? Is it just waitresses?
But they team up to do a crime.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think they team up to sell counterfeit pizza.
Listen, I'm just naming movies. I didn't come here to prepared defense.
Mystic Pizza is a good movie. Good for you, Julia Roberts.
Waiting to Exhale.
I don't know that one.
Bend It Like Beckham.
Haven't seen it.
Whip It. Did you ever see Whip It? Drew Barrymore.
Roller Derby.
Yeah.
Roller Girls.
Much better than you would think.
Yeah, it is actually. I have seen that movie. Man, yeah, that one could have possibly... No, it wouldn't have made my top 5. But it definitely should have been an honorable mention.
9 to 5. A little Dolly Parton.
Working 9 to 5.
Bridesmaids.
Oh, man, I totally forgot about Bridesmaid. That is definitely an amazing... That could have potentially made like a top 5 list.
Nice.
That movie's hilarious.
Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants is one that I enjoy. Girls Trip, certainly worth mentioning.
I still haven't seen that one, but I hear it's surprisingly better than what people think it is.
You haven't seen Girls Trip yet?
No.
Yeah, it's worth a watch. And I thought I mentioned Thelma and Louise, even though it's just kind of the two of them.
Yeah.
But yeah,
well,
it's still a team up.
It's a team up.
Yeah. So
it's just not a gang, a gaggle of women.
So there's your best ever challenge for this week, and we will move on to finish off with our buried treasure, Andrew. Why don't you go first this week? What's your buried treasure? Yeah,
okay. It's a movie.
I picked a movie too.
Did you? No.
It's like we like movies. It's amazing.
It's crazy. It's a directorial debut from a guy named Henry Dunham. This movie was crazy good. I'm not going to tell you a lot about it because it's one of those movies where I just like go and see it. It's called The Standoff at Sparrow Creek. Yes.
Interesting.
All I'll tell you is that it's about a militia, and like militia, like a modern day like right-wing militia, and a cop shooting. Okay. And it's not what you expect. This movie is...
There's aliens.
No, I mean, like, you expect, like, you hear that and you think, oh, it's an action movie or anything. It's nothing like that.
There's a lake, and a Loch Ness Monster pops out.
No,
I'm so excited now.
This movie is really character-driven. It's suspenseful. It grips you from beginning to end because it's kind of a whodunit.
Because you're so invested if the Loch Ness Monster is going to who it's going to eat. And
I know. I mean, like the standoff at Loch Ness Creek. Yeah, but no. For a directorial debut, this is a movie that you would be proud of. Like, hey,
nice.
I'm here.
There's been some really good ones lately.
This came out last year, but I read I was going through articles and I just saw one that said movies that came out in 2019 that nobody's talking about. And I'm like, ooh. Oh. And then I found out it came out in 2018, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense because everything great came out last year. Because this would have made my top 5 easily of movies of this year. But 2018, I mean, it kind of got pushed down by the incredible catalog we had.
It was a good year.
But no, this movie is incredible, and I highly recommend it.
You went back to 2018. I'm going back a few years before that to 1931.
Yeah, it's a little bit further back.
I saw M. Now, the reason I saw M...
Did you see M?
The reason I saw M is because it was recommended by a SiftPop member. There's a level of being a SiftPop member where you actually can have me review any piece of pop culture that you want me to review every month. And
M's a classic, man.
I had never seen it, and he wanted to know my opinion on it. And so I watched M, and there's a reason M is a classic. It is a great movie. Yeah. It is so good.
Pete Lore's crazy. Crazy good.
He is really good in this. I find it funny. It's a German film. Fritz Lang directed it. Yeah. He made it the same year Hitler rose to prominency in Germany, actually. I think he was elected in 1931, somewhere around there. And it's kind of fascinating to me because Peter Lorre had to flee Germany because he is a Jew. And so, just to think of here's this incredible movie known as one of the classics where the prominent performance is from somebody that the leader who was elected there that year wanted to get rid of, and it's fascinating to me to think of how hate can cloud our ability to see. So
I love this movie for the fact that it's criminals teaming up to try and do good.
Well, and what's fascinating to me
I'm trying to be very,
you don't want to spoil a 90-year-old movie.
Do you honestly? Well, it's crazy that it's one of those movies like, yeah, it's a really old movie, but still, I don't think a lot of people have seen it for as classic as it is.
Sound films started about 10 years before this movie was made. So there'd been about a decade of actually even having sound in movies. Yeah. And the way that Fritz Lang uses sound in this movie is revolutionary. Nobody had ever done with sound what he's doing here. The fact that there are off-camera sounds, the fact that there's music that is whistled in this movie that is kind of a plot point, so it's not kind of a plot point. It's the main plot point, actually. So it's not perfect. It's definitely made in 1931. There is some space in it that is just kind of, it doesn't feel modern as far as its editing and tone well, actually the tone feels more modern than you would expect, but as far as like the editing theatrical and the pace acting and those kind of things and the acting as well, although Peter Lorre again is great. But you're right, there's something fabulous here about how it's dealing with a serial killer, by the way, which is fascinating that back in 1931 that they were dealing with this. It really is one of those things where the last shot of this movie is somebody saying something about the child that they lost and that we need to do better as mothers to protect our children. And then it goes black and she says, all of us. Yeah. And like the movie just punches you right at the end where it's like, let's take care of each other better. And it's, I don't know. I was really kind of blown away because I've watched stuff from this era, like Hitchcock stuff from this era, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And generally I have the thought of, oh, what an interesting story. Well done. Yeah. This is different. This is kind of next level, great movie making that you just don't expect from something that's 90 years old. Yeah. So there's a moment, and I don't care about spoiling a movie that's 90 years old, even if you haven't seen it. But there's this moment where they're bringing this child murderer to a kangaroo court, basically, which is they've gathered everybody in the community in this basement of this warehouse to do a court. We don't know that. All we see is him being dragged down the stairs, and we don't know what's going to happen to him. And then we see his reaction to something, and then the shot just cuts into hundreds of people just staring at him still and silent. And then it just pans across these hundreds of people for about 5 to 10 seconds, and they're all just staring, silent, judging. And it's just...
Even though it's 5 or 10 seconds, it feels like it lasts.
Yeah. Huh. It's just really well done. I was very impressed. So if you're in the mood for seeing what cinema was about 90 years ago, this is some of the best that was made. Fritz Lang.
I was going through because IMDb has a top 250 movies of all time. Mm-hmm. I wanted to try and make sure that I saw everything. I'm still not done, but I tried to see everything, and M was on there. So
You know, I kind of did the same thing with the AFI Top 100 list when that came out, but M wasn't on the Top 100 list. So, yeah, it was. Where was it on the IMDb list? Do you remember?
let's take a gander. I can pull it up super quick.
All I have to say is it's worth a watch.
85.
So it was 85 on the IMDb list.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it's pretty impressive stuff. Even the way. It was funny because one of the things in writing for CinemaSins that I always talk about, it's my new pet peeve with movies, is how they use news broadcasts as exposition. Every movie, like, it's insane the percentage of movies.
What classic movies? That
will use a news broadcast as, well, television didn't exist, but there is a good 30-second space of just reading a newspaper in this movie. And I was like, oh, it's always been that way.
Yeah.
It's like, you just read the article. We just need to do some exposition right now. It's like, all right, fine. Well, we did it, man.
Yeah, we did.
We grabbed that podcast pole and danced all around it today. It was amazing.
I'd be the best male stripper ever. Ladies.
If you want to see the amazing gesticulations that are happening, as Andrew says that, you can always check out this audio podcast on YouTube.
The way you said that made me feel dirty.
Thank you so much for joining us today for SiftPop. It is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for coming and hanging out again this week.
Thank you, buddy.
Huge thanks to Phil for producing the show, both the audio and the video that you can check out at YouTube. Does an amazing job. Also, much love and gratitude to our SiftPop members for giving monthly to make SiftPop a real thing. Support starts at $3 a month. You get access to every bonus episode, as well as some other fun perks, including a monthly video hangout that will be coming soon. Actually, we're going to do a twofer. We did not get a chance to do one last month because
You were out of
YouTube.
town.
Well, no. YouTube pulled the way that we had done them before as an option, and so we were trying to figure out a way around it. But we've got that, I think, figured out, so we'll be able to do a twofer this month. You can find out all the information on that at Patreon, patreon.com/SiftPop. Lots of ways to connect with us. Feel free to comment, rate, throw some stars at Apple Podcasts, or email us, feedback@siftpop.com. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like it too, so let them know about it, and that listening is much easier than pulling off an inverted ankle grip split. We will be back next week.
I got this.
We'll be back next week to chat at Astra, maybe Downton Abbey, maybe some Rambo. Who knows what we'll talk about next week. But
Everything.
but we will see you there. Very nice. Thanks for hanging out with us on the YouTube video as well.
Yeah.
Looks like we lost audio at some point on the
Yeah,
video.
that's my bad. Sorry about that. It went down for about 10 seconds.
Okay. Did you just mute it? You're just like, I'm tired of these guys.
No, I
Mute.
I closed the app and then I thought it was still running, but it wasn't.
I see.
I've done that before and it didn't drop the audio.
Interesting.
No spoiler talk. If you're watching us live, don't stick around for a spoiler.
Correct.
Yeah.
There is no spoiler episode this week. Josh is hanging out in the chat. Let's see. Chables in the chat. Lots of people.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Thanks for
Very nice.
joining us,
Yeah,
peeps.
we appreciate you guys. David's in the chat as well.
David.
Says, how many six-packs will I need from Macadoodles for today's podcast?
The actual...
Does that mean David's in Springfield?
Does it?
Maybe David's in Springfield.
I was at Wonders of Wildlife yesterday, and I thought I saw
how was
David.
that?
I go all the time. I love that place.
Do you have like a pass or something? Like an annual pass?
It's
Are you able to take a +1? I've never been there.
no. Oh, dude, you gotta go.
It's really good.
Yeah. It's $47 for a day pass and $49 for a year pass.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that makes that decision fairly easy.
Yeah. What I do is I like sometimes I was taking my aunt and uncle because they were visiting from Ohio.
Yeah.
Maybe this can be our patron little talk here.
Okay.
Patron
Well,
show.
if that's the case, we have to say goodbye to our YouTube fellows. Because
I just teased what's going to be happening.
'cause
If you want to
the,
hear the story,
the members only post
Yeah.
show is for members only. So that'll show up in your member feed. But thank you guys. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us today, and we will catch you next week.